Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Max Callan.
All right. This is my journey of making a pizza oven. I started off doing this as an idea with my dad, and this presentation is going to kind of walk through all the different steps that take place into making it. So let's do it. Okay.
Is that where you need to be?
Yeah.
Or
So
there?
I knew I wanted to create something with my dad, and
Sorry, just want to get you back to where you wanted to be. You want to be there?
no, the first one.
There. That one?
No, go back. The goal, the one with the writing.
The one with the one with the writing. Yeah.
One more.
Oh, that's interesting. You're on delay.
Oh,
Hang on here. I see a problem. There you go.
yeah, sweet. Okay, so from the beginning, I knew I wanted to create something with my dad, and I wanted to create something that would last long and not just be like a temporary project. I wanted something to be able to stay at my house and for my family and me to be able to use while I was in college, and something that would pretty much last for however long they wanted to use it. And a pizza oven was one of those things. And when I was researching for ideas for what to do for my capstone, my stepdad was telling me randomly about how he made a pizza oven for his brother's wedding last summer, and he was showing me pictures of the process and all the details that went into it and everything, and that kind of amazed me. And he just showed me like the simplicity of the materials combined with like the actual intricate design process that went into it. And so I talked to my dad, and he agreed to be my mentor, and he was on board to help me. And he actually wanted one anyway in his backyard, so it kind of worked out that way.
Oh, for crying out loud. Hang on.
Just one.
That thing is so slow.
Yeah, it's not quite.
Don't worry.
Okay.
The audience is seeing it.
So I had to gather a bunch of resources. So first off, before I actually went out and got anything, our old neighbor actually had a pizza oven that he had created. So we wanted to go see like an in-person visual of like what it would be like and ask some tips from him. So on the right there, you can see a picture of his. And so that was really helpful. And then another thing that was great about this project was I was able to get a lot of resources, materials without having to go out and buy anything. So I got clay from my stepmom's house. I got sand from one of my dad's work sites, and I also got bricks from one of my dad's work sites, which is like one of the pretty much the three main materials that I needed. I also needed glass bottles, which you'll see later for the base of the oven. And that I was pretty much able to get from friends and family. I didn't really have to go out and buy most of that stuff. So that was one thing that was really cool about this project.
Yeah.
Okay, so to create the outline and the base, we decided to make the base on a pallet so that we were going to be able to move it because we weren't sure exactly where we wanted to have it at first. So we you can't see, but there's a pallet underneath that sheet of plywood, and then that sheet of plywood we drew out a diameter, a circle, which would be the base for when we were laying the bricks. So the diameter of the Firebrick hearth floor, which you can see on the left with the Firebricks, that had to be 22.5 inches based off this research plan that we were going off of. Because we chose to make the height of the actual dome 16 inches, and it was like the ratio, so like 16 was like nearly 2/3 of 22.5, and that ratio we learned was like really key for heating the oven and like getting the airflow correctly. So that was the steps that went into before we created the base. So this is building the base. We kind of drew the outline and then laid the bricks around it and pretty much just put mortar in between them and built it up, I think 3 or 4 bricks high. And then after after they had kind of dried, we would take a brush and like dip in water and kind of like smooth the whole thing out. You can kind of see on the left, it's like a little bit more smooth and there's now like mortar coming out. And that's pretty much just an aesthetic thing. But that was one thing we did to make sure that it wasn't sticking out at all. So after we had created the brick base, it was time to fill the interior. So this is like all underneath the oven. So we put sand and then a layer of glass bottles and then sand and then another layer of glass bottles. And it was really important that we put all the glass bottles really tight because the whole point was insulation and like keeping the base of the oven really hot. So that's why we had so many glass bottles. So after we had built up 2 layers of glass bottles and then finally another layer of sand, we created this little wooden level you can see on the left, which is to smooth out the sand so that we would have a level surface to lay the fire brick. So once it was completely smoothed out, we put all the fire brick on. We put in 21 fire bricks, and you can see the front 3 bricks were actually overhanging from the base, so that when we created the arch, we could have something to like push the pizza in a little bit. And that's pretty much all for the fire bricks. So building the arch, this is pretty cool. We pretty much just took some wooden scraps and cut it out in a like a mold of the arch for the bricks. So you can see on the right, we screwed those into each other and put it on that first 3 layers or first 3 fire bricks, and then put 2 wooden sticks underneath it so that when it was time to take it out, there was some like room to wiggle it. And then we put up bricks, pretty much just put mortar in between them and let it sit for a couple days before we took it out. So after that, it was time to create the dome. So this was probably the biggest part of the project. We took a bunch of sand, damped it a little bit. We had to make sure it was pretty wet, but not too wet because it wouldn't stick together if it didn't. So you can't see, but underneath the newspaper, there's a big dome of sand. And then we laid damp newspaper around it so that once the clay was ready and dry, and once it was time to take the actual sand out, that there would be a layer of like buffer in between so it wouldn't stick to the clay. So once we put all the damp newspaper on, we did a 3-inch clay wall around the whole dome. So that's even like on the top. And then, so that was it for creating it. And then once we let it dry for about a week, and then, so we finished on a Saturday, and the next Saturday we started drying the interior. So we took all the sand out. We took out the wooden mold and we started doing dry fires so we could just dry the interior and like harden it. And that's one of the things when we were researching, they said to really like solidify the interior walls was to do a couple like fires just to like hold the whole thing together. And there were some cracks in the outside, which was normal when you were doing the fires, but those were really helpful to learn more about the oven. And we learned it took about 10-15 minutes to get the fire hot enough to actually cook a pizza. And the diameter was only 22.5 inches again. So we had to, when there actually was pizza inside, you had to keep it to the side. And we also learned that it like cooked really quickly once you actually got up to that heat. And so you had to keep the crust like really thin when you were doing it because it would just become really, really puffy.
Cool.
No, yeah. So these are some pictures of actual in action. So you can see in the middle, we kept the fire to the side and just pretty much just rotated the pizza around as it went. And it probably only took like 10 minutes, if that. Towards the end, it was more like 8-7 minutes to actually cook the pizza, depending on how thick it was. Because the first pizza we made was just like this, but the dough was a little bit doughy at the bottom, so we tried to make it them really thin crusts.
Cool.
And then a couple more. So you can see in the middle, they weren't all perfect. That was one where we actually made the crust too thin, and we ended up making a little hole in the middle. But you can see on the left there, we were actually able to put in 3 pizzas at a time. Not huge ones, but that was like one of the great things. You could actually fit a couple pizzas in there because once the fire was going, you only needed like a couple coals to actually keep it going. Yeah, so this was my capstone, and I had a lot of fun doing it, a lot of fun creating with my dad, and I'm really excited to get to use it in the years coming. Yeah, that's it.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Max. Max, so we have some questions for you. Those of you that are online, you can type your questions into the chat. You might also, I should be able to hear you if you speak up. If you're trying to speak and you can't hear me, and I'm not responding, then put that in the chat. So some really interesting questions. One of the things I'm fascinated about here, Max, is that, there's this whole aspect of when you're graduating from high school, you're leaving the nest, you're leaving home. It's time to leave the family. It's time to sort of, get away and form your own identity. And I'm fascinated that you were able to find a project where you got to work with your dad.
Yeah,
as a kind of not as a farewell, but what an interesting time to really do something intense with your dad and with your dad as a mentor. Any comments about that? What that was like for you?
Well,
Did you enjoy
one of my
that?
main goals going into it. That's something that I wanted to do, and he's really helpful with that kind of stuff. He's really good at building a lot of things, and I knew that whatever I made, he would have a lot of materials for it, which was convenient for everyone. So yeah, that was one of like the things I was happy about.
Yeah, that just seems like a really cool way to kind of mark this change in life. I have a question from online. Thank you, Julianne. So, did the pizza from this oven taste different from pizza that you've made, say, in a kitchen oven?
I haven't made that much pizza in a kitchen oven, but I would say this definitely tastes more like a pizza you would get at a restaurant.
At a restaurant, yeah. Can you describe any of the qualities of that? What are the qualities of this pizza? What does it taste like that you like?
It might have just been the dough, but the dough was very puffy. Like it got very puffy, and maybe that's something we can like work on in the future. But no matter how thin we made it, like it would become really puffy. And I like a lot of pizza I've seen and I've gotten from stores have like really thin crust.
Yeah.
So that's something I also think that's different because there wasn't like a hinge door, like there's nothing stopping it, and there's no chimney either, so it's kind of just straight airflow.
Yeah.
So I think that's a little different. But I don't know, it tasted like pretty good. Like if you brought it to me, I wouldn't know, to be honest.
You would, yeah. I guess there's something about this dry heat where the dough rises.
Yeah.
Definitely. So when they advertise thin crust pizza, that's like a really special pizza.
Yeah.
Right? It's not easy to make thin crust pizza because the dough wants to rise, and of course you like having a rich puffy crust.
Right?
I
like that.
Yeah.
But.
Is this have you been able? Are you looking forward to throwing pizza parties this summer?
Yeah, we actually want to create like we were gonna create like a wooden paddle and like different accessories for this too. So we can try making maybe like those thin crusts or like different types of stuff.
Right, a chance to experiment, like cheese stuffed crust.
One of the things we're looking for in the summer, and also maybe creating it's possible to create another layer of insulation with like cob and like clay again. And what that would do is pretty much just like heat it, like hold it a little bit more. So like if we had another layer and heated it up, then like in like 20-25 minutes, you could just pop pizzas in like 3 minutes, they'd be done.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
So part of it's just figuring out the ritual of it, the ritual of when to start the fire, right? Being ready to do that. And then sort of getting used to the different sort of slots of time you have to deal with these things. I'm curious about the bottles. You were saying how the bottles are really important for insulation. So you had 2 layers of bottles, and the bottles are surrounded by sand, right?
Yeah.
And so what is the insulation, the fact that they make sort of pockets of air?
They hold the heat underneath there.
Yeah. So that the gaps in the sand actually hold the heat.
Yeah. And that was like really important. One of the things we were gonna just do 1 layer, and then we decided to do one layer of really tightly knit bottles and then one layer of just surrounding the outside bottles. I don't know if you can see.
Yeah, there you go. There's your bottles.
Yeah, that was the really tightly knit one.
Yeah. So that's fascinating. I never
was
thought
one.
about how you know, an interesting way you can use bottles.
Mhm.
I really enjoy the brick laying.
Yeah.
So you were saying one of the resources was your neighbor's oven. It's not that you
Right.
took the oven apart. It was just
No.
simply learning from looking at it.
Yeah, we were just able to go there and like ask him some tips about it, and he was actually really helpful, telling us like kind of some like time frame, even like how long it would take to do certain things.
Yeah,
So that's
I
good.
also noticed he's put a little roof over it.
Yeah.
You guys have any plans of that kind?
We have it right now under a tent, under this like pop-up tent pretty much.
Yeah.
But that's one of the reasons why we have it on a pallet so that we can move it.
You can move it around. I like the little roof. I mean, it looks
Yeah,
like a
that's
kind of
really- yeah,
a
it's really
fun structure to have. Now here, your neighbor didn't really put you know, they didn't put mortar in the bricks or anything. It's not really
Yeah,
that permanent
that was
thing.
one of the things that was different from us. He just laid the bricks as is.
Right.
We decided to make it more like a little bit, and we also built it up a little bit higher. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think you can do that.
That's very cool. So many steps to this. Now you mentioned fire bricks. So where do you get fire bricks? These are
So
not just regular
that was
bricks.
pretty much the only thing we had to go out and get.
Yeah.
From the store out in like kind of central Mass.
Yeah.
That was like the one thing that we had to buy because just for like cooking and stuff, that's what you need to do.
Yeah. No, those are really cool. Those are very interesting.
Yeah.
And I like that little extra sort of shelf or that ledge that you created there.
Mhm.
This is just fascinating. There's something I really enjoyed about when you created the arch, the fact that the arch is kind of what they call a classic Gothic arch.
Yeah.
It's like we see this in medieval churches in Europe,
Yeah,
right?
We decided to make it. We were gonna make it different, and then we decided to make it so there's one in the middle, kind of.
Yeah, the keystone in the top, and it's also, yeah, maybe if you want to make a door, you can actually incorporate one of the pieces of wood.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much the mold to it.
Really fascinating process. And fascinating so that the clay itself just air dries, although I guess it's getting fired every time you
exactly
make
that's
pizza.
So we let it dry for about a week, but then they say after that you want to do a couple fires to dry the inside and
to dry the inside out.
And when we were cooking at the outside of the clay, it was really hot.
Yeah, very cool. Well, this is just absolutely a fascinating project, and I'm really glad that you and your dad, like I wish I had gotten to do something like this with my dad when I was graduating from high school. Oh yeah, and this is a good slide, everybody. Here are some of the possibilities of the kinds of things you can put on your pizza, right?
Yeah, that was about everything you can put.
I think when we look at these pizzas, the word that comes to mind is artisanal, right? This is artisanal pizza.
I had to try it out.
All right, Max, this is really great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent presentation. All right, audience. Congratulations. You're good. You're done. Congratulations, Max. You're done with high school.